Hey everyone, good evening. Welcome to the table. My name is Karen Miner. I am so glad you're with us tonight. As you can see, I have a little bit of a different setup than usual, which means I can see who is on the live stream right now. So I just wanted to say a few hellos to, let's see, I saw Raymond and Nancy and Adam, Marshall, Ashley, who else? Marissa, and Joe. Yeah, so I'm really, really glad you're here. It's so great to see your names pop up. As you join us, please just put a comment. Let us know you're watching. I want to make sure we can welcome you personally. I just have one announcement for tonight. We have our second ever State of the Table meeting coming up. It's going to happen on Sunday, August 23rd. It will be online. And basically what the State of the Table is kind of like State of the Union. It's where we take some time to talk about just our financials, our vision for the rest of the year, kind of take a snapshot of our community overall. And so if that's something that interests you, we would love for you to be a part of it. It's open to anybody who's interested. So for now, save the date for Sunday, August 23rd for our online State of the Table meeting, and we'll follow up with more details soon. So this is the first Sunday of August, and I was thinking back to when we used to meet in person and how the first Sunday of every month was traditionally called First Sundays at the table, and we would share communion together during the service. And then immediately following the service, we would have a community meal. And I just can't express enough how much I miss those times. But as I was reflecting and thinking about communion and the way Jesus talked about communion as he had the Last Supper with the disciples, the symbolism and the theme there is all about remembrance. And he was saying, do this in remembrance of me, knowing that he was not going to physically be with them for a while. And I think that's instructive for us right now in this season when we're not able to meet together physically, but we want to stay just spiritually connected and connected as a community. And I think just that remembrance of communion was more than just the eating of the bread and the drinking of the wine or the juice. It's really that communal connection and spiritual connection. Like I think it's in Colossians 2 where it talks about Jesus being in all things and holding together all things. So as we center on Jesus, that reminds us who we are, who Jesus is, and that we are all connected, even though we can't be physically together. And when we did do communion together, one of my favorite parts of that was when Brett would read a Celtic invitation to the table. And so I wanted to read that tonight so that we can remember. We can remember each other. We can remember that we are a community. It's also an invitation. So if you are just joining us for the first time, you are welcome at the table. If this is all new to you, Christianity, Jesus, you are welcome at the table. Everyone has a seat, and it's the table that is centered on Jesus, not the church. So here goes. This is the table, not of the church, but of the Lord. It is made ready for those who love him and for those who want to love him more. So come, you who have much faith and you who have little, you who have been here often and you who have not been here long, you who have tried to follow and you who have failed. Come, because it is the Lord who invites you, and it is his will that those who want to meet him should meet him here. Come to the table.
Come all proud, come all greedy. Come all liars, come all shamed, come all wealthy, come receive it. To the table come today. Come all broken, come all needy, come all poor and come all slaves, come all rulers, come be seated, come all sinners, come all saints. Come to the table from near and far. Come from the shadows, come out of the dark. There's room at the table, we saved you a seat. Come to the banquet, come join in the feast. Every race, every nation, come all rebels, come all gay. From the fringes come to Jesus, to a table full of grace. To the table come and stay. Come to the table, come eat and drink. There's no inner circle, come down with the King. Recline at the table, come let down your guard. You're never a stranger, just come as you are. Come be whole, come be loved, come accepted. Come now, come be whole, come be loved, come accepted. Come now, come be whole, come be loved, come accepted. Come now, come. Prepared is the table, we're ready to feast. The party is waiting, there's more still to feed, and the harvest is ready. Go fill every seed, go live out the mission as a kingdom of priests. Go live out the mission as a kingdom of priests. Come be whole, come be loved, come accepted. Come now, come be whole, come be loved, come accepted. Come now, come now, come now, come. Sometimes on this journey I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. My story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Failure won't define me, that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Arrival's not the end game, the journey's where you are. You never want it perfect, you just want in my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. I said, failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. You're in the Father's house. There's no shame here. Prodigals come home, helpless find hope. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors fling wide, dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Jericho's walls are quaking, strongholds now is shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Oh, oh, lay your burdens down. Oh, oh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Oh, oh, you're in the Father's house. You're in the Father's house. There's no shame here. Come behold, come be loved, come accepted, come now, come, come behold, come be loved, come accepted, come now, come. You're in the Father's house. You're in the Father's house. You're in the Father's house. reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky. Your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean tide. Let's sing that again. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the skies. Your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean tide. And I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. And I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. And I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. And I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the skies. Your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean tide. I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to it. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between we're set. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to it. I can hear the roar of the heavens in the space between we're set. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. And I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. And I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. And I will lift my voice to worship you, my King. And I will find my strength in the shadow of your wings. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the skies. Your righteousness is like a mighty mountain. Your justice flows like the ocean tide. Your love, oh Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the skies.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Josh and Gary and Karen. Grace and peace to you all. Welcome to the table. It's really, really good to be back with you all after a few weeks off, and a huge, huge thank you to so many people who filled in for me while I was out. Let's see, we had, I know Don Jacobs, he spoke, and Josh Brock, and of course Maggie Tilford last week. And then Karen and Gary and Juanita and Mindy really all kind of stepped up in various ways just to help kind of prep for Sundays, some of it behind the scenes to get ready. So I'm just, really, really grateful. Thank you for giving me some time. It was a good few weeks. I did just a staycation, COVID and all. So, but it was good. There's something about taking some space to just kind of renew your own heart, soul, mind, and I experienced that. It was great. So, but I'm really glad to be back. And I also think, sometimes it takes me being away to show that the table, it really is all of us together. It's not just like the Brett show, the pastor show, whatever, but it's a collective of people all following Christ and learning to love one another and our world. So, so glad that you can be with us, and I'm glad to be back. All right, so we're in, part 7 in our series on the Gospel of Luke, and the title of my message tonight is A Radiant Light. And our primary text is going to be Luke chapter 11, verses 33 through 36, where Jesus said, "No one lights a lamp and then hides it or puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where its light can be seen by all who enter the house. Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when it is unhealthy, your body is filled with darkness. Make sure that the light you think you have is not actually darkness. If you're filled with light, with no dark corners, then your whole life will be radiant, as though a floodlight were filling you with light." All right, so to grasp this text, I think we need to understand how Jesus, as a first century Jewish person, likely understood sight. So the capacity to see is one of those things that's really easy to just take for granted. But the fact that we have this sense organ that perceives light bouncing off of objects and then hitting the cones and cells in our eyes, which then travels nearly instantaneously to our brains, where it's then interpreted, and this whole process is happening all day, every day. This is just a complete miracle. And I think understanding the modern science of sight, at least in my opinion, does not make this any less miraculous. So this miracle of sight was, of course, reflected on in Jesus' day as well. Granted, it was 2,000 years ago, so very different culture. Obviously, there was no such thing as like modern science, but they were still doing kind of, their own philosophy and their own kind of rudimentary science to kind of understand, what was happening. So, of course, they reflected on seeing, like, how is this miracle happening? And so one theory that apparently, based on this passage in Luke 11, that Jesus, he seems to have understood or kind of held to in some way, was something called the extramission theory of vision. So the extramission theory, it posits that the viewer, right, that would be like you or I, possesses an inner light that flows through the eyes, forming rays that are sent out toward visible objects. So this was a very popular theory of vision, of seeing at the time of Jesus. The Greek mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras, he seems to be the first person who kind of developed this view, this theory, and then it later came to be held by people like Plato, the early church father Origen, even St. Augustine. So the idea was basically that your inner light begins in like the core of who you are. You can call it the soul, and then it flows out, as I described, kind of out through your eyes. And then it connects with the sunlight in the external world, where it then transmits back to your eyes and is then made sense of by your like mind, or they called it soul. So one way to think of this kind of theory is that it really understands sight as almost a form of touch, where this light that is from you, and thus in some sense kind of is you, where it goes out into the world and connects with other things and potentially impacts them, transforms them, right, interacts with them, and then it returns to you and now has the potential to transform you. All right, so now you say, but scientifically speaking, that is not how sight actually works. That's true, I know. But the thing is, I don't think it actually matters, because Jesus is not trying to make a scientific argument here. Instead, he's using this as a metaphor to talk about something else. And that something else, in my reading of this text, is your inner light, this inner quality of a person. The idea seems to be that you are always already radiating a certain light, a vibe. At the risk of sounding a little woo-woo, and I think it's okay, I've said before, I'm a Christian, and that means I'm a little bit woo-woo, but basically, I mean, he's kind of describing that you're radiating this, this energy, this vibe, and I think we pick up on this in one another, right? For example, there are certain people you just want to be around. Right? Certain people that they radiate a light, a goodness, a positivity of being that draws you toward them. In fact, when you're around them, it's almost like their life light has touched you, has changed you, interacted with you for the better. Now, I'm very biased on this, but I think that those of you who know her will agree that, for example, my wife Maggie is one of those people. If you got the privilege of listening in last week, she spoke last week, did a really wonderful job, and she's just one of those people. Now, by most standards, Maggie has lived a very quiet and simple life. She goes to church, she loves her friends, she's raised 3 babies, she teaches piano lessons. Simple, quiet life. But for anyone who really knows her, she is extraordinary because of her, I think as Jesus would call it, of this light, the quality of her light. It blazes very strong. So much so that when piano students graduate high school, some of them have only half jokingly said that they're going to just continue to pay her money, not to take piano lessons, but to simply sit next to her for half an hour every week. Now, why would they joke about doing that? Because for them, it wasn't just about the piano lessons, was it? It was time to be in the light. Now, I could be inching my way towards heresy, making my wife sound like some sort of, like a demigod or something. So let's make this really clear. Who is the source of the light in each of us? Let's make this really clear. God. If you're taking notes, you can write that down. God. This is who Christians call the Holy Spirit, right? God within us, the Spirit of Jesus, who, as John chapter 1, verse 9 says, enlightens every man, every woman, every person, that God is there, God is within you, which means the question is not, do I have the light? Right? The question is, and I said, let me back that up a little bit. It's not, do I have light? Because God is present to every single one of us. So the question is, how brightly will I allow it to burn? And just to be clear, this is not about being a bubbly person. I know very quiet people who I believe the light burns white hot in. I'm just thinking of people like in our community, Roy Parker. Definitely comes to mind. Now, he's far less bubbly and extroverted than Maggie, and even than his wife, Nikki, who's also radiates the light beautifully. Maggie and Nikki are very like high energy, bubbly. Roy's not like that, but there's an ease of being. There's a love. There's a life light there that I just think cannot be denied. So this, of course, begs the question: how can we become people of the light? I think verse 33 puts it really beautifully. No one lights a lamp, Jesus says, and then hides it or puts it under a basket. Very few people, in other words, they just, very few people set out saying, I don't want to radiate the light. I want to be evil. Like, who says that? Very few people say that. We all want to be radiant with the light, and yet, I'm often not so radiant. Like, why? Why aren't we, as Jesus said in verse 34, a healthy, that was his word, healthy people? Why do we have dark corners in our lives, as verse 35 says? And by the way, that's true of all of us, even Maggie and Roy and Nikki and all the people. We all have those dark corners. So why aren't we, as verse 36 says, radiant as though a floodlight were filling you? Well, here, I'll just speak from my own experience. I think the reason, honestly, is not super complicated. It's quite simple. Why don't I radiate the light? Because it's hard. It's harder. I mean, what's easy is to let those dark corners of my life become dark rooms until I have, metaphorically speaking, nearly extinguished the light, right? Left to myself, just left my own little ego and my own flesh, like, I just want to take the easy way out. And in the end, I kind of wonder if perhaps this is actually what, in ways, like the whole spiritual life boils down to, that there are two paths. The kind of go with the flow, right? The easy path, what Jesus in other passages like in Matthew, he calls it the broad way, right? Just the easy way through life, or the narrow way, the hard way. And the truth is, it's harder, at least up front. I think, the way things play out in the long game, it's often easier and better to choose the hard thing in the moment, right? But I'm talking about, though, in the short run, in the immediate moment, it's harder to choose the light. Now, what do I mean? I mean that every day, me and you, we are all faced by hundreds, perhaps thousands of just small decisions that all ask me to decide, which will I choose? Do I choose the light? I have one kiddo, and I've been struggling with him recently, and I have two he's, so you're not quite sure who I'm talking about, but it's been difficult. And I think in ways I don't have to go off to like a monastery to receive intense spiritual training. I just have to try to earn a living and raise 3 children. And so this one kiddo has been, it was rough. He's just been talking back a lot and is just kind of a rude person. And this is particularly true prior to quarantine. Lots of mom and dad time the last few months. That's been a good thing. That's been a win. Prior to that, Lord have mercy. He's just turning into a jerk. And so, and not even like occasionally, like pretty much every day. And like, for example, I would say, all right, time to go to bed. And he'd say, you go to bed. And it's 9:30 at night and I'm just tired. And that may not sound like much, But just go ahead and multiply that moment by 10,000 moments in the last few years, and it's Maggie and I have said it's like living with an emotionally abusive person. And so there's times where I just can't take it anymore. So the other day, we're on a family walk, and this kiddo, he'd just been rude, all day, and he's riding a scooter, and he slipped in the mud and fell, all the way to the ground. And he wailed and got very dramatic, and I became, very annoyed because I was just out of mercy for him. And we kind of continued on. He eventually got up, moved on, and but on our way back, we kind of did a out and back thing. So as we're coming back, we came to that same bend in the path where he had slipped, and I somewhat passive aggressively said, "Hey, bud, do you want me to carry you and your scooter over this part, just to make sure you don't get hurt?" But I said it in that kind of ambiguous way where it's unclear if I was lovingly offering to help or just being a sarcastic jerk. And he looked at me, kind of trying to interpret before looking away, and he just eventually he couldn't quite read it. And so he just kind of scootered on ahead. And Maggie, my wife, she turned to me and she said, "Why do you do that? You see that button, that insecurity, and you just have to push it." And I don't remember what I said to her exactly, but I know the reason. It's because I'm a jerk. And it was easier to blow off steam in that way than to bite my tongue. It's easier in that small little moment to just keep this little corner in the darkness rather than choosing the light. Now, that may sound small, almost not worth mentioning, but I name it as an example of the 1,000 small decisions that all ask us to decide, which will we choose? Do we choose the light? But it doesn't end there. In fact, verse 35 takes things even deeper. Jesus continues, "Make sure that the light you think you have is not actually darkness." Now, I think this should put the fear of the Lord in all of us, because it's saying that there's a moment when we believe we are in the light. In fact, you might even say we believe in that moment we are most in the light, like we've never been more in the light. And yet that just may be our darkest moment. I was reflecting on where this is likely to happen in our lives, and I think it's in our views, our opinions, and our judgments. We are just so sure that we are stinking right, and thus that we are in the light. About 10 years ago, I was driven to just read and study Christian theology a lot, just very intensely, because I thought that would be the key. If only I and other Christians were more educated, we would no longer be deluded by wrong thinking, deluded by the darkness, and we would then possess the light. But then I noticed that the people I was following online, the people whose blogs I was reading, remember blogs? We used to read things online. These people I was following, they really were, honestly, they were brilliant. They were far smarter than me or anyone I knew. And yet, over time, I could see their insecurities bleeding through. I could see that they too were full of ego. They were right, and everyone else was an idiot. And it was totally immature. And I noticed that in the very moment they believed that they and their blogs, were bastions of the light. And yet I could see the evil lurking there. Because when everything for you is dogma and the love is draining out of your heart, you are almost certainly in the darkness. Here's how theologian Dom Ulrich Graham, he puts it in his wonderful book, Zen Catholicism, which that's way less heretical than it sounds, that book. It's really wonderful. But he says this: clinging blindly to one's opinions can be a more effective block to direct contact with reality and therefore to union with God than vice itself. That's a mouthful, so let me read it one more time. Clinging blindly to one's opinions can be a more effective block to direct contact with reality and therefore to union with God than vice itself. What's he saying? He's saying that we tend to focus on, the big sins, the vices, the I don't know, the embarrassing things, alcoholism, drug abuse, etc. When it comes to things that we believe block the light. But what if it's our stubbornness and pride? What if it's our opinions and our dogmas and the way, not so much just what we believe, but how we believed it, how we hold what we believe, that are actually the dark corners we should be most worried about? Precisely because we don't even realize the darkness that may be dwelling there. Because that means at the very moment we are trying to take the strongest stand for the light, we actually stand on the precipice of pride and ego and thus of a certain darkness. Of course, the reverse is also true, that those who can hold their convictions with a certain gentleness and awareness of their own fragility and humanity, although that person might not be nearly as loud and confident, they just might be radiant with the light. As G.K. Chesterton said, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. I love that. And I guess all I'm saying is that it's really hard to let the light of God shine through us. And I don't want to sugarcoat that. If it were easy, human society would be completely awesome. But there are insecurities and impulses and all manner of ego and foolishness just whispering to us to take the easy road. So what should we do? Well, what I want to do is close with 4 steps to radiate the light. So if you're practically minded and you want it broken down, this is the part for you. So here's 4 steps. Number 1, take the hard road. If it's super easy, like I described earlier, if it's super easy in the moment, if it just feels impulsively good, be real suspicious. And if it's challenging, if it takes some discipline, that's probably good for you. And I think this really covers everything from engaging spiritual disciplines, which I have and will continue to push you towards things like journaling and prayer, scripture reading, meditation, therapy, silence, even things like working out, eating well, getting the rest you need, all those things. And then all the way to the 1,000 little decisions that we talked about earlier. Think of that moment with my son, right? It's easy to be passive aggressive. It is hard to bite my tongue. Right? So we've got to choose love, choose service, choose humility, choose patience, choose honest and life-giving speech over and over and over again. We got to take the hard road. Second, take the first step on the hard road. It's easy to get overwhelmed by needing to do 1,000 things differently in order to radiate the light. So just start with one. Choose one. Maybe it's one spiritual discipline. Maybe it's one right decision. As I discussed a few weeks ago, that phrase that I got a lot of feedback on this that was really positive. Keep your world small, right? So don't get overwhelmed by the 1,000 things. Keep your world small. Choose the one thing. Third, find a few people to take the first step on the hard road with you. We live in a society that is so prone to individualism and chronic loneliness. And the truth is, we all need a band of brothers, a circle of sisters to engage this path with us. It's really people who will give us what we call SEA, support, encouragement, accountability. We need all 3 of those in our life. And that's why we have meetups. So if you aren't a part of a meetup, I encourage you to join one. you can reach out to me or fill out our contact form at thetabletx.org, and we'll get you connected with a group. And then fourth and finally, pray. Just look around the world. On the whole, human beings are really struggling to radiate the light, and that includes me. And I struggle, you struggle, and this is why we need to realize that, it's not just about, choosing the hard thing and taking the hard path and all that and gritting our teeth. At the end of the day, all of us need divine grace. We need to touch the source of life, of light, of love, Christ himself, so that we can receive that grace and more beautifully radiate the light of Christ. So let me go ahead and pray for us. Lord Jesus, we long to be people of the light. So would you move through us? Would you give us your grace, God, to be faithful, to live and love well? And in those little moments when it's just so easy to take the easy path, God, would you give us the strength to choose the hard path, to radiate the light? And because of that, God, may we as families, as friendships, as communities, as the table, this church community, God, may we radiate the light of Christ. It's in the name of Christ that I pray. Amen.
Shine your light on us, that we might live. Oh my God, shine your light on us, that we might live. I've been holding on. I've been holding on. It's all that is inside of me screams to come back home. As if you feel lost, as if you feel lost, sing along. If you feel tired, if you feel tired, sing along. If you feel lost and tired, this is your song. I've been broken down. I've been broken down. But I ain't giving up. Love will come back around. And if you feel lost, and if you feel lost, sing along. If you feel tired, if you feel tired, sing along. You feel lost and tired, this is your song. Yeah, yeah. You feel lost and tired, this is your song. Oh my God, shine your light on us, that we might live. Oh my God, shine your light on us, that we might live. shine your light on us, that we might live.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you, Brett, for that message. I really, really needed to hear that. I don't know about you guys, but this past week I have really been struggling to radiate the light, and specifically around just navigating this whole back to school stuff. Like, what do we do? And how do we make informed decisions? And oh gosh. And I know at the table we've got so many families of school-aged kids. We've got teachers and school staff. And I just want you to know that, we're in this together, and we are praying for you guys as a table leadership team. And yeah, Brett's right. We need each other in this. We need support, encouragement, accountability. That's what the church is for. And to ground all of that in the fruit of the Spirit, in goodness and faithfulness and patience and peace. And we need to remind each other of that, and that it's all centered on God. So whether it's around the school stuff or anything else that is going on in your life right now, we want to be there for you. So please, please reach out. If there's something we can help you with practically or tangibly, or prayerfully, or just a listening ear, that's who we are. That's the table. And also, I really, really want to thank those of you that are continuing to give, whether it's financially or energetically or with your presence to the table. It means so much, especially right now. These are, these can be really stressful, tough times. It can be easy to tap out and take a break. And so many of you have chosen to just keep showing up, and just want to say thank you. It does not go unnoticed, and it's really, really appreciated. So as we close out tonight, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and honor the passing of a giant among us, civil rights leader and U.S. Congressman John Lewis. Shortly before he died, he wrote an op-ed that he wanted to have published the day of his funeral. So it just got released, and it's incredible. I'm going to read an excerpt of it as our benediction and call to action tonight. But if you get a chance, I highly recommend reading it in its entirety. So these are the words of John Lewis. May he rest in peace and power. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love, and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. Amen. Be blessed as you go into your week. We're here for you, however you need us to be, and we hope to see you back here next week. Bye-bye.